Alberto Gonzales' life began on the north side of Houston.
My dad had a second grade education. My mom had a sixth grade education. There were 8 kids in a small 2-bedroom house in Humboldt, Texas. We didn't have hot running water the entire time I lived at home. Didn't have a telephone in the house until I was, I think, a junior in high school. It was a pretty impoverished environment.
Public education treated him well and gave him a good grounding for what was ahead.
Most everyone went to public schools. There was never any expectation about going to private schools. So I went to Aldine Junior High and Aldine MacArthur. Did well in school. There was no expectation that I would go to college. And so when I graduated from high school, I enlisted in the Air Force.
Part of the appeal was to widen his horizons beyond the north side of Houston.
I thought this would be a good move for me because it would give me an opportunity to perhaps learn a trade, perhaps earn GI benefits if I ever decided I want to go to school again. And hopefully I might get stationed at a place that I'd never been before, somewhere outside the United States. My first airplane ride was to go to basic training at Latino Air Force Base in San Antonio. That was the path that I chose, which is do well in school, work hard, and then see what happens from there.
In the Air Force, Gonzales applied a work ethic that had been acquired young.
My dad was an alcoholic, but no matter how bad the weekends were, Monday mornings he would get up and go to work, realizing that he had 8 kids to provide for. So I learned the importance of just showing up, doing your job, and working hard.
Remembering a lesson from childhood, Gonzales decided to turn down the cushy Air Force duty assignment he initially drew.
I decided not to take the Key West assignment, and my new orders came in, and I was stationed at Fort Yukon, Alaska, which is north of the Arctic Circle, where the winter got 60 degrees below zero. So that was my reward for following my dad's advice to take the hard thing first. And looking back at my life, I'm not sure that I ever would have even gone to college if I had taken the Key West assignment. I'd have been on the beach somewhere, frolicking around with young women, and probably never even thought about college. But being at Fort Yukon, there really wasn't much else to do. That set me on my way, quite frankly. And I got an appointment to the Air Force Academy.
Gonzales followed that up with a degree from Rice University, then law school at Harvard. Returning to work at Vincent Elkins in Houston, he made a connection that altered his life.
I think what he saw was that mine was the American story. He's the son of a president. I'm the son of a construction worker. But nonetheless, we meshed well. He developed much confidence in me and in my judgment. I'm just grateful that I was able to meet the man who ultimately becomes President of the United States.
I formed a pretty serious bond right off the bat because I liked his style, I liked his background, and it was clear that he was a smart man.
Bush and Gonzales bonded over a few things.
If you had walked into his office when he was governor, he had a huge glass cabinet case full of autographed baseballs. And in the afternoons, oftentimes I would come over to his office and we'd plop down on the couch and we would talk about 3 things. We would talk about policy, we would talk about politics, and we would talk about baseball.
Joining the administration of George W. Bush in Washington, things quickly got difficult as America faced 9/11 and a host of tough questions.
What about interrogations? We needed information in order to prevent another attack, and so interrogations became a very controversial issue. Surveillance, in terms of gathering information. How would we take advantage of our technology to intercept communications that might help us stop another attack?
Moving to the office of Attorney General, Gonzales' workload grew much larger, and one area of concentration became going after child predators.
And so we began a program called Project Safe Childhood, and it was sort of a 3-legged stool where we would take the resources of the Department of Justice, combine it with state and local resources, and then finally organizations like the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and we would work together to identify child predators on the internet.
Through difficult times as White House counsel and attorney general, there was always a place of solace waiting.
When you hold those important positions, you have a lot of friends. People want to be your friends. They want to spend time with you. When things kind of get tough, that's when many of those so-called friends scatter. And it's always the family that's always there, and that was true for me. Having someone, that support group like my wife, like Becky, was very, very important for my success, and certainly was very important for my well-being, because you need that level of support when you try to do difficult things.
Today, Gonzales still sees challenges for Latinos in the United States.
There are still challenges with respect within our community, but not just within our community, but in the Black community and other communities. For white communities, for example, in terms of educational opportunities. Getting a good education, getting a post-secondary education, or learning a trade in a trade school, which I think is also a valuable commodity, quite frankly. So I always try to conduct myself in a way that reflected the fact that we are a multiracial country. I remember stories where people have come up to me when I was Attorney General. Hispanics would come up to me and say, you know, when President Bush announced that you were being appointed as Attorney General, you know, my grandfather cried. My aunt rejoiced the fact that we had a Hispanic who was going to be Attorney General of the United States. So I know in certain families in our country, it was a big deal.
Gonzales continues to build on his life's work.
Al Gonzales' legacy will be one of a fellow who grew up in very difficult circumstances in Houston, Texas, who wanted to succeed and did. His legacy will be that he prioritized his family and his country. His legacy will be that he served at the highest levels of government without compromising his soul.
Alberto Gonzales now leads the law school at Belmont University in Nashville, and he retains a positive outlook for the country.
Anything is still possible in this country. I'm an example of what is possible. My life has been the American story, and I hope that that encourages others to pursue the American story.